I repaired the alien queen's radio. Then she locked the door from inside and said, "Come here." On his small home planet, he had fixed broken radios, computers, and even small vehicles. Now, aboard the remote research station orbiting Zyphera, his skills were put to the ultimate test. The station was a lone outpost in a stretch of space that few humans had ever explored. Its primary mission was communication research, listening for signals from other civilizations. Eli often found it boring, waiting for hours for a blip of static or a faint signal that would never amount to anything. But today was different. While scanning the sector near Zyphera, Eli noticed something unusual. Amid the static and background noise, a faint signal appeared, unlike anything he had encountered before. It wasn't random, it had structure, a strange rhythm, almost as if someone or something was trying to speak. Eli leaned closer to the console, his heart beating faster. The signal was weak and broken, but there was no mistaking it. It was intelligent. Eli quickly ran through the system's standard diagnostic checks, ensuring that it wasn't a glitch in the station's equipment. Everything seemed normal. He adjusted the frequency and refined the filters, trying to isolate the signal. As he did, he noticed that it originated from a large mass in orbit near Zyphera. From his instruments, it looked like a massive ship, unlike anything in the human records. Its design was strange, organic in appearance, with flowing curves and glowing panels that seemed almost alive. He called the station's commander, a strict and cautious woman named Captain Lorna Hayes. "Captain, I've picked up a signal from an unidentified vessel near Zyphera. It's structured intelligent. I think we should investigate." There was a pause on the other side. "Eli, you know the orders. Do not engage any unidentified vessels. This could be hostile. Report only. Do not attempt contact." Eli sighed. He had expected this. Protocol was strict, and the last thing the human government wanted was a confrontation with an unknown alien civilization. Still, he couldn't ignore the signal. Something about it was compelling, almost desperate. He knew that if he didn't act, someone else might, or worse, the signal could disappear entirely. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the ship, the strange patterns in the signal, and the possibility that an intelligent alien life form was trying to communicate. His curiosity, his innate need to help and understand, pushed him toward a risky decision. By morning, he had decided. He would board the ship. He knew the risks, but he also knew that sometimes humans achieved greatness by taking chances others were too afraid to take. With careful planning, Eli prepared a small shuttle capable of docking with the alien vessel. The station's AI tried to warn him, calculating the danger of an unknown ship. Eli ignored it. He took a deep breath and launched, the shuttle gliding silently through the void toward the massive alien structure. As he approached, he marveled at the ship's sheer scale and beauty. Its surface shimmered with colors that seemed impossible, flowing like liquid metal and glass at the same time. The design was elegant and purposeful, clearly built by a civilization far beyond humanity's technology. He docked carefully at one of the ship's ports. The docking clamps sealed with a soft hiss, and the connection interface pulsed lightly, as if the ship itself was aware of his presence. Eli suited up and entered. The interior of the ship was unlike anything he had imagined. The walls were smooth and luminous, softly glowing in colors that shifted like the northern lights. There was no obvious technology, no buttons, no screens, no wires, yet the ship functioned with precision. Strange symbols floated in the air, arranging themselves into patterns that Eli could not decipher. It was alive in a way, a harmonious blend of biology and technology. Moving carefully, Eli followed the faint hum of energy, which seemed to lead him deeper into the ship. Then he saw her, the alien queen. She was seated in a chamber that radiated power. Her size was imposing, her body tall and regal, covered in iridescent exoskeleton plates that shimmered with every color Eli could see. Her eyes were large, intelligent, and curious, fixed directly on him. She did not move aggressively, but her presence was overwhelming. Eli swallowed hard and held up a hand in greeting. The queen tilted her head, observing him with an expression that seemed both wary and curious. Then he noticed the problem, a strange device beside her, clearly damaged, flickering with intermittent energy bursts. It looked like a radio, but unlike anything human. He approached carefully, trying not to alarm her. Using the knowledge he had built over years of fixing equipment, Eli examined the alien device. Its materials were unfamiliar, but he noticed patterns that resembled circuitry, a universal language of energy and signals. Carefully, he adjusted connections, rerouted energy flows, and tested different interfaces. Hours passed as he worked, the queen remaining seated, silently observing every movement. Finally, with a soft click, the device hummed steadily, glowing with a bright and stable light. The alien queen's eyes widened slightly, and she produced a series of melodic tones, almost musical, that Eli instinctively understood as approval. For the first time, he felt a connection across the vast gulf between species. He had helped her, fixed what she could not. Eli relaxed slightly, his own relief mixing with wonder. The queen then did something unexpected. She moved to the door of the chamber, her limbs fluid and graceful. With a soft motion, she locked the door from the inside, turning to face him. Eli froze, unsure of what to expect. His human instincts screamed danger, but her eyes held no hostility. Instead, there was an unmistakable invitation, a silent command. "Come closer." Eli hesitated, considering the possibilities. He could retreat, call for backup, or even leave the ship. Yet something about her presence, her trust in allowing him this access, made him step forward. Humans had always been known for curiosity, bravery, and adaptability, and Eli felt every bit of those traits pushing him toward the unknown. He moved carefully, observing her movements, ready to react if anything went wrong. The queen tilted her head again, this time in a motion that seemed almost gentle, guiding him deeper into the room. Around them, the ship seemed to respond, the walls pulsing softly, lights dimming and brightening, as if the environment itself recognized the bond forming between human and alien. As Eli approached, he noticed more details about her. Her eyes were filled with intelligence, curiosity, and a hint of something else: trust. The radio she had relied on was only the beginning. He realized that she had reached out across the stars because she needed help, and in that moment, Eli understood the weight of what humans could offer the galaxy: ingenuity, courage, and compassion. The queen produced a small, hovering display from her body, projecting images and patterns that Eli could interpret. It became clear that her civilization was in danger, trapped in a form of stasis, and only someone capable of creative problem-solving and ethical decision-making, qualities she had observed in him, could help them. She was testing him, evaluating whether humans could be allies. Eli's mind raced. He had never imagined being in a position like this, standing in an alien chamber with a being of immense power trusting him to act. His hands shook slightly as he realized the responsibility. He had repaired her radio, but now the stakes were far higher. The future of an entire species might rest in human hands, yet he did not falter. Humans had always thrived on challenges, and Eli felt the same determination he had as a child when faced with a broken machine. He would find a way to help. Step by step, he began to communicate with the queen, combining gestures, simple symbols, and intuitive understanding. Slowly, a connection formed, bridging the vast difference between species. As they worked together in silence, the queen began to produce sounds and images that Eli could barely comprehend. Each one seemed to contain more information about her people, their plight, and their technology. He realized that the repair of the radio was only the beginning. To truly help, he would have to adapt to their methods, understand their systems, and solve problems in ways humans had never tried before. By the time he paused to catch his breath, Eli understood that this was no ordinary encounter. This was a moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. If he succeeded, humans would gain the trust of a species far more advanced, and perhaps open the door to alliances and discoveries beyond imagination. The Queen watched him closely, her posture relaxed but alert. There was an unspoken message in her gaze. She trusted him, but she needed to see how far he could go. Eli felt a surge of determination. He would rise to the challenge, as humans always had. And so, standing in the luminous chamber of an alien vessel, Eli Carter prepared to take the first step toward an adventure that would change the galaxy and humanity's role in it forever. Eli felt a chill run down his spine as the Queen locked the door behind him. The soft hiss of the mechanism echoed in the chamber, blending with the hum of the ship's systems. He froze for a moment, staring at her, unsure of what she intended. Despite her size and power, there was no aggression in her posture. Instead, her gaze was curious, intelligent, and filled with a strange expectation. She tilted her head slightly, as if inviting him to step closer. Eli swallowed hard. Humans were trained to be cautious in unknown situations, yet something in him stirred, a mix of curiosity, determination, and the quiet thrill of discovery. He took a careful step forward. The floor beneath him seemed to respond to his movement, glowing faintly in rhythm with his footsteps. The Queen's body pulsed lightly with color, almost as if she, too, was alive in more ways than just biology. He moved closer, scanning the room. The walls shimmered with shifting patterns of light and color, creating shapes that seemed alive. Eli felt as if he had stepped into a living painting, but one that contained intelligence and purpose. He realized that the ship itself might be part of the Queen's consciousness, reacting to her emotions and commands. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The Queen extended one of her long, elegant limbs toward a floating panel. Symbols and shapes materialized in front of him, shifting rapidly. Eli reached out, trying to understand them. His mind raced to find patterns, comparing them to the schematics he had studied over the years. Slowly, he began to see logic in the chaos. The symbols were instructions, not words, but the logic behind them was clear. She was showing him something, guiding him to understand her systems, her people, and her needs. Eli realized that this was more than just a test. The Queen needed help, not just with machines, but with something far greater. He felt a surge of responsibility. Humans had always been problem solvers, but this challenge required more than technical skill. It required understanding, empathy, and a willingness to take risks. Eli had faced difficult repairs before, but never had he felt the weight of a life or a civilization resting in his hands. He focused on the panel, tracing the glowing symbols with his fingers. Patterns emerged, revealing a sequence of operations. It was clear now that the Queen species was trapped in a form of stasis. The devices he had seen earlier were not just radios. They were part of a complex system designed to suspend life, to preserve it through an unknown threat. Eli's heart pounded as he realized the implications. He was being asked to awaken an entire civilization, a responsibility no human had ever faced. The Queen observed him closely. Her eyes seemed to measure his reactions, testing his courage, intelligence, and ethical judgment. She moved slowly, producing sounds that were musical, yet carried meaning. Eli instinctively understood that these were questions, challenges, and instructions all at once. He responded carefully, using gestures and expressions to communicate. It was slow work, but gradually the Queen's responses grew more complex, and the level of trust between them increased. As Eli worked, he noticed subtle shifts in the chamber. The walls glowed brighter in response to his actions, and the floor pulsed in rhythm with the Queen's tones. The ship was alive in a way he could feel, and it seemed to recognize the bond forming between human and alien. He began to see hints of pathways and hidden compartments within the ship, suggesting that there was far more to explore than he had imagined. He asked a silent question: what danger had caused her people to enter stasis? The Queen responded with a vision projected onto the walls: a vast fleet of unknown creatures, moving with terrifying speed and precision, attacking her home world. She and her people had been forced to flee, preserving their population in stasis while the threat passed. Eli realized that the Queen's civilization was both ancient and advanced, yet vulnerable. It reminded him of humanity in some ways: clever, determined, and resilient, but fragile in the face of overwhelming forces. Eli understood that to help her, he would have to learn their technology, think in ways he had never thought before, and solve problems without fear of failure. He had faced difficult repairs on Earth, but nothing like this. He took a deep breath and began examining the Queen's systems more carefully. He traced wires and conduits that seemed to hum with energy. The materials were unlike anything human engineers had ever encountered, yet he found patterns that resembled circuits, energy flows, and logic gates. His fingers worked nimbly, adjusting connections and rerouting energy. Each adjustment brought a new response from the Queen. She tilted her head, producing sounds that Eli interpreted as encouragement. Slowly, he realized that the repairs he had made earlier were only the first step. Hours passed as he worked, navigating complex systems, learning the Queen's logic and adapting to the alien technology. He made mistakes, of course, wires sparking unexpectedly, energy flows fluctuating. But each time he recovered, using his human creativity and intuition to solve the problem. The Queen observed silently, her gaze never leaving him. Eli felt a strange connection growing between them, a recognition of intelligence and purpose across species. By nightfall, he had managed to stabilize several critical systems. The Queen produced a series of sounds and images that Eli could barely understand, but he felt their meaning. She trusted him, and she was ready to guide him further. He realized that the next step would require both courage and cleverness. The stasis system needed to be accessed directly, and it would not be simple. The Queen led him through a corridor that seemed to shift and change as they moved. The walls pulsed with color, reacting to their presence. Eli had to think quickly, adapting to the shifting paths and unexpected obstacles. He realized that the ship itself was a test, designed to challenge intruders or ensure that only the worthy could proceed. Humans had always excelled at problem-solving, he thought, and this was the ultimate opportunity to prove that. As they moved deeper, Eli noticed the Queen's physiology in more detail. Her body was elegant, her movements fluid, and her intelligence apparent in every gesture. Despite her power, there was vulnerability in her presence. She needed his help. He felt a surge of determination. Humanity had always been capable of extraordinary things when faced with challenges, and he would not fail now. They reached a large chamber, dominated by a massive device that pulsed with energy. Eli could feel the power radiating from it, a combination of technology and biology intertwined. The Queen gestured for him to approach. He studied the device carefully, noting patterns that resembled energy circuits, control nodes, and stasis interfaces. It was clear that this was the heart of her civilization's preservation system. He began to work, connecting energy flows, rerouting circuits, and adjusting interfaces. The Queen observed, producing sounds and gestures that guided him. It was a slow process, requiring patience, precision, and creativity. Eli's human traits, intuition, adaptability, and persistence proved invaluable. Each adjustment brought new stability, and the device responded with rhythmic pulses of light. Hours turned into an entire cycle, yet Eli continued. He felt exhausted, but he also felt exhilarated. The challenge was unlike anything he had faced, and the reward was immeasurable. The Queen's trust in him had grown, and he realized that humans could be more than observers in the galaxy. They could be problem solvers, allies, and leaders. Finally, he reached a point where the system stabilized. The energy pulses synchronized, the stasis interfaces hummed steadily, and the ship's environment seemed to settle. The Queen's eyes glowed softly, and she produced a melodic sequence that Eli recognized as approval. She moved closer, extending a limb to touch a floating interface, and the entire chamber responded, illuminating pathways and revealing further secrets of the ship. Eli realized that this was only the beginning. The Queen had tested him, and he had passed. Humans had shown their worth, not through brute strength or power, but through intelligence, creativity, and ethical action. He felt a sense of pride, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. The Queen guided him to a control panel that projected images of her home world, her people, and the threats they had faced. Eli studied the visuals carefully, trying to understand the challenges ahead. He realized that awakening her people from stasis would be far more complicated than he had imagined. Yet he also knew that he had the skills, determination, and human ingenuity to succeed. As he worked, the Queen stayed close, observing, guiding, and communicating in ways that transcended words. Eli felt a deep respect for her, recognizing her wisdom, intelligence, and courage. He understood that trust was being built, and that humanity had been given an extraordinary opportunity to prove itself on a galactic scale. By the end of the cycle, Eli had made significant progress. The Queen's systems were stable, her stasis mechanisms were functioning, and the path forward was clear. Yet he knew the real challenge lay ahead, awakening an entire civilization and ensuring their survival in a galaxy full of unknown dangers. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility, and realized that humans were capable of extraordinary things when they embraced curiosity, courage, and intelligence. The Queen's trust in him was a testament to what humanity could achieve. For the first time, Eli felt the full magnitude of his role in this adventure. The Queen, once a distant, intimidating figure, now stood beside him as an ally, a guide, and a symbol of hope. Together, they would face challenges that no human or alien had ever encountered before. And as the chamber pulsed with light, signaling readiness for the next step, Eli knew that his journey had truly begun. The fate of a civilization and humanity's place in the galaxy rested on his shoulders, and he was ready to rise to the challenge. Eli felt a mix of excitement and tension as he followed the Queen deeper into the alien ship. The corridors seemed to shift and move with every step, walls stretching or bending slightly as if alive. Light pulsed softly along the edges of the walls, guiding him, but in unpredictable patterns. He realized quickly that the ship was not simply a vessel, it was an organism, aware and responsive to both the Queen and him. Every instinct told him to proceed carefully, yet his curiosity pressed him forward. The Queen moved with grace, her every motion precise and deliberate. She produced a series of melodic tones, which Eli understood as directions. He had learned to read her language partially in the previous hours, and now he could follow her instructions with more confidence. Each sound she made seemed to carry layers of meaning, not only guiding him but also testing his perception, his patience, and his ability to adapt. They entered a large chamber where the walls were fluid, shimmering like liquid metal. Strange patterns appeared and disappeared on the surface, forming temporary pathways across the room. Eli realized that the ship was actively shaping the environment to challenge him, to test his intellect and creativity. A wrong step could activate defenses or lock the path, but the Queen moved without hesitation, indicating that she trusted him to navigate safely. Eli took a deep breath and began moving carefully, studying the shifts in the walls and the patterns of light. He noticed that some pathways appeared only when he focused on them, or when he matched the rhythm of the light pulses. His human ingenuity, honed by years of problem-solving on Earth, became his greatest asset. He had never felt more alive, more aware of the unique combination of intuition and logic that allowed him to survive challenges like this. Halfway through the chamber, a section of the floor suddenly shifted, revealing a pit below. Eli jumped back instinctively, barely avoiding falling into the dark void. The queen produced a series of tones that were calm, almost musical, and a small bridge of light extended across the gap. Eli realized that the ship was alive in a protective sense, testing his reactions and precision. Each obstacle was not meant to harm him, but to ensure he could handle what lay ahead. He continued forward, more focused than ever. The queen observed silently, but her eyes seemed to glow slightly, as if communicating encouragement. Eli felt a strange connection forming, not just with her but with the ship itself. He could sense a pattern in the walls, in the way the lights shifted, and in the way the air seemed to hum. He realized that understanding the ship was as important as understanding the queen. Humans had always been good at learning from their environment, and now that ability was essential. As they moved deeper, Eli encountered sections where the walls formed complex puzzles. Panels shifted to create mazes of light, and energy flows blocked certain paths. He had to think creatively, using trial and error while carefully observing the ship's responses. He rerouted small energy conduits, redirected pulses of light, and adjusted his movements in sync with the shifting environment. Each success allowed him to advance further. Each mistake caused a momentary setback but also taught him something new. The queen guided him toward a chamber that pulsed with blue light, the air charged with energy. This was the first major test. The chamber contained floating spheres of energy, moving in unpredictable patterns. They were harmless, yet blocking the way forward. Eli studied the patterns, realizing that each sphere followed a rhythm he could decipher if he paid close attention. He moved cautiously, timing his steps with the sphere's movements, his pulse quickening with each successful maneuver. At the far end, a control node floated in the air, projecting a complex interface of alien symbols and energy flows. Eli approached it, understanding that this was not only a navigation device, but also a way to interact with the ship itself. The queen produced a series of melodic tones, guiding his fingers toward specific sequences. Using his human problem-solving skills, Eli interpreted the patterns, adjusting connections and energy streams. Slowly, the system stabilized, and the spheres of energy fell into orderly orbits, opening the path forward. As they progressed, Eli began to notice more subtle aspects of the Queen's technology. The ship's corridors were more than physical spaces. They were interactive, responding to thought, intuition, and creativity. He realized that this level of integration was far beyond anything humans had ever built. Yet, by observing, experimenting, and adapting, he could make sense of it. His human qualities of ingenuity, patience, and courage proved to be exactly what was needed. They entered a chamber filled with what Eli assumed were energy conduits connecting to the stasis system. The Queen gestured for him to examine the nodes. Eli studied the flowing energy, trying to trace its origin and destination. The conduits were delicate, yet powerful, pulsing with energy that could be dangerous if mishandled. He worked carefully, connecting the flows, ensuring stability and watching for any signs of malfunction. The Queen's melodic guidance provided subtle hints, but Eli had to rely on his instincts and intelligence to proceed safely. Hours passed, and Eli felt the strain. His mind was exhausted, but he pressed on, understanding the importance of his work. Each adjustment he made brought stability. Each correct decision built trust with the Queen, and each success confirmed that humans could rise to challenges far beyond what most imagined. The ship was alive, aware, and responsive, yet it had chosen him as an ally. At one point, Eli encountered a particularly complex puzzle, a series of energy streams converging on a central node, shifting unpredictably. A single misstep could destabilize the entire system. He studied the flows, recognizing patterns, and using trial and error, he began to align them properly. It took intense focus, precise timing, and creative problem-solving. The queen observed silently, but Eli could sense her approval growing with each successful alignment. Finally, he completed the task. The energy flows synchronized, the chamber stabilized, and a new path opened. Eli exhaled deeply, feeling a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he had experienced. The queen's gaze met his, and for the first time, she produced a tone that Eli interpreted as a gesture of respect. He had proven himself capable of navigating the ship's challenges, using human qualities of intelligence, courage, and adaptability. The queen led him further into the heart of the vessel, where the stasis system awaited. The chamber was massive, filled with glowing pods containing her people. Eli felt awe at the sight, an entire civilization preserved in suspended animation. The energy flows connected to each pod, keeping the inhabitants safe but dormant. It was clear that any mistake now could have catastrophic consequences. Eli approached the control interface, a complex array of symbols, energy streams, and tactile nodes. The queen guided him with melodic tones, indicating sequences that needed adjustment. Eli worked carefully, aligning energy flows, stabilizing nodes, and monitoring the stasis systems. Each correct adjustment brought more stability. Each mistake taught him something new about the alien technology. The queen remained close, her presence reassuring yet commanding. Eli realized that the bond between human and alien was growing stronger. Her trust in him was complete, and he understood that his actions were not just repairs. They were a bridge between species, a demonstration that humans could rise to challenges with intelligence, morality, and creativity. As night fell on Zyphera below, Eli finally stabilized the stasis network. The energy flows pulsed rhythmically, and the pods glowed softly, indicating that the alien population was secure. He looked at the queen, feeling a sense of triumph and responsibility. This was not the end. It was the beginning of a larger journey, but humanity had proven its worth. The queen produced a final sequence of tones, which Eli interpreted as a signal of readiness. She gestured toward the next chamber, where further challenges awaited. Eli understood that he would need all his ingenuity, patience, and courage to continue, but he felt ready. Humans had survived countless challenges on Earth, and now they were demonstrating their value on a galactic scale. As they moved toward the next section of the ship, Eli reflected on the journey so far. He had faced a vessel alive with intelligence, navigated shifting corridors, solved complex puzzles, and stabilized a civilization's stasis system. All of it had required creativity, courage, and trust, the qualities that defined humanity. The queen had tested him, and he had passed, earning a place not just as a visitor but as an ally. The ship itself seemed to recognize his success. Light pulses grew brighter, corridors straightened, and energy flows harmonized. Eli felt a sense of unity with the environment, the queen, and the task ahead. He understood that humans were capable of extraordinary things when they combined intelligence, empathy, and determination. As they entered a new chamber, the queen's presence remained close but guiding. Eli felt ready to face whatever came next. The challenges ahead would be greater, the stakes higher, but he was confident that human ingenuity, combined with trust and collaboration, could overcome them. And so, standing in the heart of an alien ship, Eli Carter prepared for the next stage of his adventure. The labyrinth had tested him, The stasis system had demanded his intelligence, and the Queen had measured his courage. Humanity had proven itself worthy of trust, and the journey to awaken an entire civilization was only beginning. Eli Carter stood at the edge of the chamber, staring at the immense device that pulsed with energy. This was the heart of the alien ship, the stasis core that held the Queen's people in suspended animation. The sheer scale of it was breathtaking. Thousands of glowing pods lined the circular chamber, each containing a life suspended in time. The energy that radiated from the core was intense, filling the room with a quiet hum that seemed almost alive. Eli felt a mixture of awe, fear, and responsibility. One wrong move could endanger an entire civilization, yet one correct decision could restore it. The Queen moved beside him, her presence steadying him. Her eyes glowed softly as she produced a series of melodic tones, which Eli had now learned to interpret as instructions and guidance. She did not speak, for she did not need words. Every sound carried meaning, every motion indicated a necessary action. Eli nodded to himself, understanding that this would require more than technical skill. It would require trust, patience, and human ingenuity. He approached the core carefully. Panels of glowing symbols hovered in midair, shifting constantly as if alive. Eli's fingers traced the patterns, noting the flow of energy and the connections between the pods. He could feel the pulse of the system, the rhythm of life suspended in perfect balance. It was overwhelming, but he reminded himself that humans had always faced impossible challenges, and often succeeded by relying on creativity, observation, and courage. The Queen produced another set of tones, this time more insistent. Eli realized that she was directing him to a specific sequence of adjustments. He studied the glowing interface, mapping the symbols to energy nodes and flows. The logic was alien, yet surprisingly intuitive. Patterns repeated, and with careful observation, he could trace the pathways of energy throughout the system. His hands moved swiftly but deliberately, connecting circuits, realigning energy flows, and stabilizing the power streams that fed the stasis pods. As he worked, Eli noticed that some energy conduits were unstable. Sparks of light flickered dangerously, and one pod emitted a faint pulse that suggested a fluctuation in its containment field. He paused, realizing that the system was delicate and reactive. Every adjustment needed to be precise, every movement calculated. Humans were known for problem solving, but now he needed to combine that skill with intuition and patience. Hours passed as he stabilized the first section of the core. The Queen observed silently, her gaze fixed on him, conveying both trust and expectation. Eli felt a sense of pride but also a deep awareness of responsibility. He had stabilized part of the system, but the challenge was far from over. The stasis core was massive, and each section required delicate handling, careful timing, and constant adjustment. He moved to the next section, noting differences in energy flow and complexity. The Queen produced tones that Eli recognized as warnings, indicating that these nodes were more sensitive and prone to disruption. He adjusted his technique, using smaller, precise movements and constantly monitoring the feedback from the system. Each correction brought stability, each misstep required careful recovery. Yet he pressed on, knowing that humanity had always thrived in the face of adversity through perseverance and creativity. At one point, an unexpected surge of energy cascaded through the system, causing several pods to flicker dangerously. Eli acted quickly, redirecting the energy flows and stabilizing the core with a combination of quick thinking and technical skill. The Queen's gaze remained fixed on him, her eyes glowing brighter in recognition of his ingenuity. He realized that humans were being judged not just on skill, but on their ability to remain calm and act decisively under pressure. Eli continued, moving from section to section, learning the subtle patterns of the core and the rhythms of the Queen's guidance. He adjusted conduits, balanced energy flows, and synchronized the pods with careful precision. The Queen's tones became more melodic, almost musical, signaling approval as he progressed. It was clear that the alien civilization had designed this system to test not only knowledge and skill, but also patience, focus, and creativity, qualities that humans possessed in abundance. As night fell on Zyphera below, Eli felt the weight of exhaustion. He had been working continuously, yet the stakes pushed him forward. Humans had always been problem solvers, and this was perhaps the greatest problem he had ever faced. The Queen remained beside him, a silent partner, her presence a constant reminder of the responsibility he carried. Together, they were bridging species, showing that intelligence, courage, and trust could overcome even the most complex challenges. Finally, Eli reached the final section of the core. The energy here was intense, the pulses faster and more erratic than anything he had encountered before. The Queen produced tones that were urgent, signaling that this part required both precision and boldness. He studied the flows carefully, noting the sequence and timing necessary to stabilize the pods. Every nerve in his body was focused, every instinct on alert. He began the final adjustments, moving carefully but confidently. The system responded immediately to his actions. Energy conduits synchronized, glowing pods stabilized, and the pulses of the stasis core began to harmonize. Eli worked swiftly, ensuring that every adjustment was correct, every flow aligned, until the entire core pulsed rhythmically in perfect balance. The Queen's eyes glowed brightly, and she produced a tone of approval so melodic that Eli felt it resonate deep within him. The stasis pods began to hum softly, indicating that the alien population was secure. Eli allowed himself a moment to breathe, to feel the magnitude of what he had accomplished. Humanity had proven itself capable of extraordinary feats. The Queen's civilization, preserved for millennia, was now safe, thanks to human ingenuity, courage, and patience. Yet Eli knew this was not the end. Awakening the population would be the next challenge. The Queen produced a sequence of tones, projecting a series of holographic images that indicated the process for safely bringing her people out of stasis. Eli studied the instructions carefully, noting the delicate timing and precise sequence required. One mistake could harm the population, so he resolved to proceed with extreme care. He began the awakening process. Energy flowed through the pods, gradually reactivating systems and preparing the inhabitants for reanimation. Eli monitored every pulse, every fluctuation, adjusting the flows as necessary. The Queen remained beside him, her presence reassuring, her guidance constant. The task was immense, but he felt a sense of unity and purpose that fueled his determination. As the first pod activated, a soft light emanated from within. The figure inside stirred, eyes opening slowly as consciousness returned. Eli felt a thrill of triumph. One life had been restored and the process was working. He moved methodically from pod to pod, carefully monitoring energy flows and ensuring stability. Each awakening was a success, a testament to human problem-solving, precision, and ethical responsibility. Hours passed, yet Eli continued tirelessly. The Queen's people gradually awoke, one by one, filling the chamber with soft movements and quiet sounds of life. Eli marveled at the complexity and beauty of the civilization, recognizing their intelligence, culture, and resilience. Humanity had earned the trust of an advanced species, demonstrating that courage, ingenuity, and ethics could bridge even the vastest gaps in the universe. By the end of the cycle, the stasis core was fully operational, and the alien population was awake and healthy. Eli stepped back, allowing himself a moment to absorb the magnitude of his achievement. The Queen produced a tone of pure approval, and for the first time, Eli felt a profound sense of connection not only with her, but with all of her people. Humanity had proven itself worthy, not through strength, but through intelligence, creativity, and moral action. The queen extended a limb toward him, a gesture of gratitude and trust. Eli realized that the bond they had formed was now unbreakable. Humans and her species had begun a partnership that could reshape the galaxy, a testament to the value of ingenuity, courage, and ethical problem-solving. Eli reflected on the journey so far. He had faced unknown technology, navigated living corridors, solved complex energy puzzles, and awakened an entire civilization. The challenges had tested every aspect of his human qualities, and he had risen to meet them. He understood now that humans were not just survivors. They were capable of extraordinary achievements when curiosity, intelligence, and courage guided their actions. The queen guided him to a viewing platform overlooking the chamber. He could see the aliens moving with awareness, their intelligence shining in their eyes. Eli felt a sense of pride and responsibility. This was a turning point, not just for her species, but for humanity's role in the galaxy. Humans had demonstrated that they could be trusted allies, problem solvers, and partners in interstellar endeavors. As he stood beside the queen, Eli realized that the true challenge was only beginning. The awakening had succeeded, but the queen's people would need guidance, protection, and collaboration to navigate the galaxy safely. He felt a sense of purpose, knowing that humans had a role to play, not just as explorers, but as protectors, innovators, and friends to civilizations far beyond Earth. Eli took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of achievement. The stasis core was stable, the population was awake, and the queen's trust was earned. Humans had demonstrated their value, not through force, but through intelligence, courage, and ethical action. The journey ahead would be difficult, but Eli was ready. Humanity had proven that it could rise to any challenge, no matter how vast or complex. And as the alien queen watched him, her eyes glowing with recognition and gratitude, Eli understood that this was a new beginning, not just for her people, but for humanity's place among the stars. The adventure was far from over, but the path forward was clear. Humans could achieve greatness through intelligence, courage, and the willingness to act with both heart and mind. Eli Carter watched as the alien citizens moved with cautious curiosity throughout the chamber. Their eyes, wide and bright, reflected intelligence far beyond what humans had ever imagined. The queen had led him here after the successful stabilization of the stasis core, and now her people were slowly beginning to explore their surroundings. Some moved gracefully, testing their bodies after centuries of suspension. Others hovered near the glowing consoles, instinctively understanding the systems that maintained their civilization. Eli could feel a quiet tension in the air, wonder, relief, and curiosity blending together. The queen stood beside him, her presence calm and commanding. She produced a series of melodic tones, which Eli had learned to interpret as both guidance and communication. She seemed proud, yet cautious, understanding that the alien people were seeing him as more than a helper. They were beginning to see him as an ally. Eli realized that this moment would define humanity's place with her species, and that every action from here forward mattered. He moved among the newly awakened population, observing, asking questions through gestures, and listening to their responses. Communication was slow at first, but the aliens were intelligent and adaptable. They understood the concept of cooperation quickly, and Eli found himself explaining simple systems and operations that they had long forgotten due to centuries in stasis. The queen watched silently, occasionally producing tones to clarify or emphasize points. Eli felt a deep sense of responsibility. The alien civilization had been preserved, but they were now vulnerable. They had to adapt to the reality of the galaxy they had left behind, a galaxy in which humans already played a growing role. He realized that trust was fragile, and humanity's actions now would determine whether their relationship would be one of cooperation or fear. He began guiding them through the ship, showing how systems could be monitored, maintained, and optimized. Humans had always excelled at teaching and learning, and Eli relied on these skills. Step by step, he demonstrated procedures, patiently answering questions and encouraging collaboration. The aliens watched him with fascination. They had been preserved for survival, but now they were beginning to understand the value of working with another species. As the hours passed, Eli realized that he needed to prepare the Queen and her people for the next step, rejoining the galaxy. He had already stabilized their systems and ensured the population's safety, but a civilization cannot thrive in isolation. They needed allies, guidance, and the wisdom to navigate interactions with other species. Eli began developing plans with the Queen, showing her maps of star systems, communication channels, and potential threats. He explained humanity's own history, emphasizing adaptability, intelligence, and cooperation. The Queen listened closely, her eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and admiration. She produced a series of tones, asking questions about human capabilities, ethics, and resilience. Eli answered carefully, knowing that she was evaluating whether humans could be trusted as partners. He explained that humans had survived environmental disasters, conflicts, and countless challenges because of their ingenuity and willingness to learn. He emphasized that humanity's strength lay not in brute force, but in intelligence, creativity, and ethical decision-making. Slowly, a plan began to form. The Queen would lead her people back into the galaxy, but humans would assist them in navigating it safely. They would form an alliance, combining the strengths of both civilizations. Eli felt a surge of pride. Humans, once a relatively small species on a distant planet, had earned trust and respect from an advanced civilization. It was a triumph not of conquest, but of cooperation and ingenuity, a true celebration of humanity's potential. Yet there were still challenges. The alien ship had been isolated for centuries, and the population needed guidance to operate their technology fully. Some systems were too advanced to understand quickly, requiring Eli to improvise explanations and workarounds. He realized that humans had an advantage: creativity under pressure. Where the aliens were bound by millennia of structured thinking, humans could experiment, innovate, and solve problems in unexpected ways. Eli used this to teach them efficiently, bridging gaps in understanding. The Queen observed him with quiet approval, producing tones that Eli had come to recognize as appreciation and agreement. Together, they led small groups of aliens through training exercises, demonstrating how to operate the ship, maintain life support systems, and communicate with other civilizations. Eli marveled at how quickly the population adapted, their intelligence shining through once the stasis had been lifted. As the day passed, Eli felt a profound sense of connection to the aliens. Humanity had often dreamed of contact with advanced civilizations, yet he had never imagined it would feel so personal. He realized that this moment was not just about repairing technology or stabilizing a system. It was about building trust, understanding, and a lasting alliance. The Queen's faith in him was a reflection of what humans could achieve when they approached challenges with intelligence, courage, and ethics. In the evening, the Queen led Eli to the bridge of the ship. From there, he could see the galaxy sprawled before them, stars, planets, and distant nebulae stretching into infinity. She produced a final series of tones, indicating her desire to extend friendship and cooperation to humanity. Eli understood immediately. The Queen was offering an alliance, a partnership between species, built on trust and shared values. He nodded, smiling, realizing the significance of the moment. Humans had been cautious, curious, and creative, and now they were being recognized as equals in the galactic community. He responded with a series of gestures and words, expressing humanity's gratitude and commitment to cooperation. The Queen's eyes glowed softly, and she produced a melodic sound that Eli instinctively understood as approval. The next hours were filled with preparation for the alliance. Eli helped coordinate communication systems between the alien civilization and human outposts. He demonstrated protocols for safe exploration, trade, and collaboration. The aliens learned quickly, fascinated by human adaptability and ingenuity. Eli realized that this partnership would shape the future of the galaxy in profound ways. Humanity was no longer an isolated species. It had proven itself capable of responsibility, problem-solving, and ethical action on a cosmic scale. As they worked, Eli noticed the Queen watching him closely, her expression unreadable at first. Then she produced a soft, melodic tone, a sound that conveyed gratitude, respect, and trust. Eli felt a warmth in his chest, understanding that the bond between humans and her civilization was genuine. This was more than a simple alliance. It was a partnership built on mutual respect, shared goals, and the recognition of intelligence and ethics across species. Eli reflected on everything that had happened. He had traveled to an alien ship, repaired critical systems, navigated living corridors, solved complex energy puzzles, stabilized the stasis core, and awakened an entire civilization. Each challenge had tested his intelligence, courage, and ethical judgment. Yet through it all, humanity's defining traits had shone brightly. Curiosity, creativity, and moral responsibility had earned trust and respect. Humans had proven themselves worthy not through force, but through ingenuity and character. As the Queen prepared her people for departure, Eli guided them through final checks and training sessions. Energy systems hummed smoothly, stasis pods were empty, and the ship's controls responded perfectly. The aliens moved confidently, their curiosity and intelligence evident in every action. Eli realized that he had not only helped stabilize a civilization, but he had also laid the foundation for a lasting partnership between species. Finally, the moment came to leave the ship. Eli stood at the observation deck, watching the Queen and her people prepare for their journey back into the galaxy. She turned to him, her eyes glowing softly, producing a tone that Eli understood as farewell, but also as an invitation to continue collaboration in the future. He nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment and purpose. Humanity had earned trust, respect, and a place among civilizations far beyond Earth. As the alien vessel powered up and began its journey through the stars, Eli reflected on the adventure. Every challenge had required him to rely on human traits, intelligence, creativity, courage, and ethics. He realized that these qualities, often overlooked on Earth, were what made humanity capable of extraordinary achievements. In a universe filled with unknown dangers and possibilities, humans could adapt, innovate, and form bonds that transcended species and distance. Eli returned to his shuttle, watching the alien ship disappear into the vastness of space. He felt a sense of pride, knowing that his actions had changed the course of history, for the aliens and for humanity. The Queen's civilization was safe, awakened, and ready to explore the galaxy once more, and humans had earned a seat at the table through ingenuity, problem-solving, and ethical behavior. As he plotted a course back to the research station, Eli looked out at the stars, feeling a connection to the vast cosmos like never before. He knew that this was only the beginning of humanity's journey. There would be new challenges, new civilizations, and new opportunities for humans to prove themselves. But now he had seen firsthand what humans could achieve when they trusted their intelligence, courage, and creativity. The Queen's melodic tones echoed in his mind, a reminder of trust, partnership, and the responsibility that came with it. Eli smiled, feeling confident that humans could rise to any challenge the galaxy presented. Through ingenuity, ethical action, and determination, they could build alliances, protect civilizations, and shape the universe in ways that honored both human potential and the lives of others. For Eli Carter, the adventure had begun with a simple repair of a radio. It had led to trust, friendship, and the awakening of an entire civilization. Humanity had proven its worth, not through dominance, but through intelligence, courage, and moral responsibility. The stars stretched before him, full of promise, challenges, and possibilities. And for the first time, Eli felt that humanity was truly ready to meet the galaxy on equal terms. He knew one thing for certain: the story of humans and aliens was just beginning, and with trust, ingenuity, and courage, the future was limitless.